You're listening to Top 4, a new series presented by the GamePitch podcast.
Join hosts Brandon and Eli as they build gaming Mount Rushmores every week.
Enjoy topics that range from the best multiplayer types to the top bug Pokemon.
Catch fresh episodes of Top 4 every Wednesday on the Project Nerd Network.
And don't miss new episodes of the GamePitch podcast, dropping every Monday morning.
Let's get ready to rank.
Hello and welcome to Top 4 More Podcast, brought to you by GamePitch on the Project Nerd Gaming Network. We're here today ranking things like we do. I'm Elijah and I'm here with my good pal Brandon. Brandon, how you feeling?
Elijah, I'm feeling great, but more importantly, how are you feeling, birthday boy? Everybody, it's Elijah's birthday that we're recording on. Say happy birthday to him, even though it's going to be
like way
very late when he receives it.
Yeah, man. Yeah. It's good to be older. It's good to be maybe wiser. I don't know if I am. Maybe.
All you can do is try, right?
You gotta hope and pray and dream that you will wake up smarter one day. That's all I can do. But here, if you have not listened to the show before, what we do is we rank video game things, a variety of topics. Sometimes I pick it, sometimes Brandon picks it, but we reveal our fourth favorite thing from that video game topic to the first favorite. We get super niche sometimes. Sometimes we go pretty broad. Brandon, I think we're pretty broad this time. What did you pick, pal?
I picked the top 4 earned it moments in video games.
Now, in true Top 4 More fashion, we did not talk about what earned it moments, like what that technically meant. So what did it mean to you?
Yeah, so Elijah, as you know, for those who don't, I often text Elijah this exact phrase whenever I do something that I said that I wouldn't do, or don't do something that I said that I would do. So Elijah, as you know, I ain't shit. And instead of playing through more video games that I said that I would play through, so that I can talk more about different video games and have better opinions on our lovely podcast here, I'm replaying God of War. It was recently updated for the PlayStation 5, running on 60 frames per second. Absolutely loving it. But this took me back to before God of War had come out, and I was very excited for this game. I had been watching interviews from the developers, all of the obviously like trailers and whatnot for the game prior to its release. And one of the videos that stood out more to me than any of the other videos was an interview with the game's director, Cory Barlog. In this interview, he talks about how he had previously directed one of the PlayStation Portable God of War titles. And in that title, they sort of start to explore and develop Kratos as a human a little bit more in that game. They don't do a great job at it, and Cory even goes on to reference this and says that he made some mistakes in this game, and that's why it didn't really work out the way that he had intended it for it to. He mentions that they have this touching moment where Kratos sees his dead daughter in like the land of the dead or whatever. I don't know, it's Greek stuff. He sees his dead daughter, and they have like this touching moment, and it just didn't really land. And it didn't land because they hadn't earned that moment. So, on this same subject here, I think that there are certain video games that do a lot to earn specific emotional responses from you, and other games not so much. And I think that that's why some games are in an echelon of their own. A couple of examples that come to mind immediately: Sarah's death in The Last of Us, at the very opening of the game, touching for sure, but they didn't really earn that. Not the way that they do with some of these other hard-hitting moments from The Last of Us series.
I'm glad that you clarified that, because I wanted you to know, in a never before done move in our show history, our pod history here, I actually built 2 lists, because I didn't know if you meant moments that I earned or moments that they earned, the developers, or that me, the player, earned. So I built these 2 lists with that in mind. And I was going to pivot my list based on kind of what you said. And so now what I want to do is I at least want to just verbally say what my like I earned it moment was, but I'm going to tell people, I'm going to go in depth on the they earned it moments, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because I wasn't sure, so I'm literally looking at a dual list right here, like going down like 1 to 4, like 4 to 1, and honorables and dishonorables and all that stuff.
Okay, cool. I like it.
So then let's do the honorables and dishonorables, but also like, so I mean, that was why you chose this, right? Because you're just playing God of War again.
Yeah, pretty much.
And I guess like the reason or like what these moments mean to us, we're going to have to get into during this, because I think that's probably why me and you play video games. We don't play it just because we're like, yeah, I want to get the highest score in Call of Duty and pwn the noobs. Like, we play these games to feel something, and that might be, that might not be for every player. Some people do want, that winning. They want the supremacy over people, or they want to feel good by dominating. And I think for me, I want a story told, and I want to cry. Like, that's my thing.
Yeah, definitely. Could not agree more. And we'll obviously get into this more as we go through the list, but I think that earning it can manifest in lots of different ways. So I'm really excited to dig into this one.
All right, pal. Well, what are your honorable and or dishonorable mentions, if you have any?
I have one dishonorable, and it's because one thing. So it's the platinum trophy for Jedi Fallen Order, because I recently went back and did that, and it did not deserve it. I should not have done that. That felt like a huge waste of time, and I'm very salty about it. That's the only dishonorable.
Really? That's all you got? Like, just
That's really all I got.
Okay, buddy. I'll start with my dishonorable as well, and it's not. And so I'm going with the I earned it camp, right, to start.
Okay.
So
sure.
I did not earn this moment beating Cuphead, because I got carried through that fucking game. So I did not earn it. That's a dishonorable mention for me. They earned it moment. The developers is my honorable mention is Journey, and I really just don't want to say much about the moment that they earned, other than play Journey. Really short, really inexpensive, super beautiful game. I bet it looks great on new consoles on a nice TV too. But just towards the end of Journey, I just feel like they earned like that game is a culmination, and like, you just, when the moment happens, you're just like, man, games are effing cool.
I know what moment you're talking about and have to agree.
All right, pal. Well, then now we got to go to your number 4.
My number 4 is the New Donk City Festival from Mario Odyssey.
That's a good choice. I didn't even think of that. What a scrub I am. So good.
Yeah, again, I mean, like, I think that these types of moments manifest themselves in multiple different ways. I think it's hard to describe what I felt as that transpired on my screen in front of me the first time that I got to experience it. But man, what a cool little section of the game. If you haven't played it yet, please go do so. Essentially, you're running through the New Donk City world, and towards the end of the story, you essentially get to do a wonderful 2D platforming section with some wonderful Mario throwbacks. You've got some rockin' music playing, and it's really just a celebration of Mario, what the character has done for the industry, and what he means to people like me who love his games.
It's interesting that it's like his own museum within his own game. You know what I mean? Like, it's honoring his. It's almost like now all these games really almost play on nostalgia, and they are like monuments to the past while bringing something new in a way. But I do have to agree with you, man. The New Donk music knocks, and like everything that's happening there is just effing fun.
Yeah, and I think on the note of it being like a museum to Mario's achievements, I think the reason that like this one really made my list is because I've been on so many different journeys with Mario that it feels like this was a museum to my achievements as well.
That's really cool. Yeah,
Yeah, man.
And it makes you feel something, right? You're just like, yeah, you get like hype.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's good stuff. It's one of my favorite one of my favorite moments in gaming ever, and I hope that everybody gets to experience it at some point.
Okay, fantastic, sir.
Well, what's your number 4?
Okay, so I'll start with the I earned it moment. The recent Destiny raid that I beat, it took us 10 hours to beat, maybe a little more than 10 hours. I'm trash. It sucks. Raid Team 4 really needs to step up our game. But yeah, I earned that shit. Like, you can't imagine the amount of relief that washed over us, because we were doing it to get a weapon that you have to like do all these puzzles in this raid alongside the raid you have to beat it. Like, you couldn't have left and come back, because we would have done that. Like, at 6 hours, we would have left and came back if it kept the progress, but you have to do it in one shot. So yeah, after 10 hours and like 35 minutes or whatever, beating it at like 2-3 in the morning, so satisfying. So that was I earned it. But the moment that they earned was, if you haven't played Hellblade Senua's saga song, what
Sacrifice.
Senua's Sacrifice. There you go. I was actually still thinking Destiny, and I was thinking Savathun's song. Wow, my brain. Okay, so yes, Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice. So that game is incredible all the way throughout. Graphically, it was like just ahead of its time. Like, I was like, how does this game look this good on this old hardware? And I was playing on an OG day one Xbox One. And what I'm talking about, and maybe a lot of these, hopefully not all of these moments, are like the endings of things. But my goodness, man, like, it's like this thing where I don't even think that the boss fight is really that good at the end, but just the lead up to it, the epicness of the moments, the way the world's crumbling and things are happening, it's just like so epic in scope. It was just like, man, how is a game doing this? So it felt like I was reading the book Dante's Inferno, and I was falling into the rings of like, it was just super damn cool. And I really like that moment, like just the way it builds.
That one's on my list, and I'm definitely excited to play it now, especially because since it's received positive feedback from you. Because I've heard like half my friend camp really likes it, and the other half is like, man, it sure is okay. So I'm excited to at least get some of those moments like this one that you're talking about out of it.
Yeah, really, really stellar stuff. And it's weird because the game isn't what you might think it is when you like watch trailers for it. It's very different. There's a lot more puzzles. Yeah, it's just a really odd game, and I just like that there is a space for these kind of games. It's getting a sequel. It's, a primary marketed Xbox game. Like, it's super cool that something this small and like nuanced and effing weird can actually get like this kind of attention. But that's all I got, buddy. What's your number 3?
Definitely. My number 3, it's time for us to say goodbye. Ocarina of Time. So, if you have not played Ocarina of Time, definitely do that. One of the greatest games of all time, in my personal opinion. And this moment is definitely my favorite moment of the game. It's after you beat Ganon. The game is over at this point. You're running through. I mean, I guess they were really cutscenes back then, but like cutscenes. And you're speaking with Zelda after all of the chaos has ensued, and she's thanking you for your service to Hyrule, and she utters those words. And I play The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time once a year, every year. It's one of the few memories that I have of my dad playing through it with him, and this moment in particular always has such a massive impact on me emotionally. It's I get to step into this world once a year and have this experience, and do what to me feels like spending time with my dad that I wouldn't otherwise get. And spending that time every year to do this is one of my favorite things that I get to do. And this moment right here is just one of the best out there.
I love it that it's a game that actually has time travel in it, that helps you travel to another point in your life. And, when we talked about with Mario that these games can be monuments or museums to the past and the history, they can also be, monuments or museums to our shared past and histories, to our personal nostalgia. And that's maybe, a thing. And not everyone plays older video games. And it's this thing where, playing an older game for me, like Super Mario RPG or Psychonauts, it does the same thing for me. Not to the same level, but it transports me back to a simpler time. That summer camp in Psychonauts reminds me of being younger, and just, the optimism you have and the joy. And yeah, I completely understand, buddy. And thank you for sharing that with us, because like, that's super special. And Ocarina is a perfect housing for that type of love and memory.
This is a good episode. We didn't even, Elijah, that was beautiful. We didn't even plan that. He didn't even know he didn't know what my pick was. And that was beautiful.
It's because we're best friends, and I love you forever, buddy.
Love you forever too, man. Let's hear yours. What's your number 3? Well, both of them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So the one that I earned, and so the in the way that I was carried through Cuphead, I was not carried through Gunstar Heroes, one of the hardest Super Nintendo games of all time. Downloaded it on my Wii on the freaking WiiWare, and I beat that game with a friend in co-op. Gunstar Heroes, hard as F, so hard. And maybe I'm wrong, but I just remember as a kid, like my cousins being like, "Yeah, Gunstar Heroes, that's the one you got to beat, man." And I was just like, "Oh my god, I suck at this game." So beating it as an adult gave me that kind of happiness and that nostalgia. But so that's the one I earned. The one that they earned is, again, I wish that my list wasn't all ending stuff, but Celeste, when you get to the climax of that game, it is so emotionally satisfying. The game is an excellent platformer, and it has almost no right to be as good as it is in the in-between moments, the small cutscenes, the exchanges. And by the end of it, I think that, like, if you go through Celeste and you beat it and you don't feel something, it's like watching the beginning of like Up and not feeling something. It's like you are factually a robot. Like, cut your arm open, look inside, see the wiring, and realize that you're beeps and boops and zeros and ones. Like, just know it. Like, if you're not feeling something, and not everyone can have the same emotional response, but I think it fucking nails it.
Yeah, Celeste is one of the games that I am super bummed about knowing even just a little bit about the ending about, just because I think that this moment that you're talking about, because I've seen it unfortunately, but this moment that you're talking about, I feel like is the personification of earned it, because I know that there are so many like trials and challenges that you have to go through for this moment to be impactful and have carry that weight and have that meaning to you. I think this is a perfect pick for this list.
Thank you, friend. I love Celeste. I I think about it often. It's a beautiful game, and the makers, mwah, thank you for, and like, see, that's cool. That's the cool thing about your pick this week, man. It's just like this stuff does make us think a lot about the past, the present, the future, and like just how effing cool games are. And that's why we're doing this podcast, right? Because we both love games.
Yeah, absolutely. Could not agree more. This is this has been a fun one.
Number two, what it do? Tell me what your two.
Would you kindly tell me your number two? No, but yeah,
No,
it's
no. That was solid, my friend. And I'm actually mad right now because I did not. This is not on my list. What a good pick. You're smarter
yeah.
than me.
Definitely not smarter than you, but again, I think that this one specifically really kind of touches on what I was talking about earlier with how games can earn things in different ways, right? It doesn't always have to be like a super emotional, touching, thing that I carry with me personally, like, my previous picks. It can be something like this where you're, again, running up to the end of the game and then suddenly your world is flipped upside down.
Yeah, and the rug is pulled, and you're just like, jaw agape, and So I think it's really hard for pop culture to have these, right? Like, and so I'm gonna step away from games, because you have, maybe with Lost, like the we have to go back moment. You have, Game of Thrones, the Red Wedding, and even people who had read the books knew this was coming. But the TV viewers, like, it's like these very rare things, or like what happened on Mandalorian very recently with a certain, like, there's these moments where your jaw's just open and you can't believe what's happening, and this is one such moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have to avoid using social media all day Friday from the time that I wake up till the time that my wife gets home from work, because I don't want to see either like Star Wars spoilers or WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier spoilers. Like, it's impossible to have like these super shock and awe moments these days. And I played BioShock, I want to say at least 5 years after its release, and this moment still happened for me, and I'm still like mind blown that I somehow didn't get that ruined, somehow never heard anything about it, because this moment, like experiencing it for the first time, was again like just one of the coolest things that I've ever gotten to experience from a video game in my life.
So I'm trying to think, bud, like, is BioShock as good of a game without this twist? Because it's obviously much more than this twist, but it is. I would say people think of it as one of the seminal storytelling things in games. But just to liken it to something else, with M. Night Shyamalan, like, I think his movies get less interesting once you know the twist at the end, or like they don't really hold up to rewatch. But I would, if I had infinite time, I would play BioShock multiple. Like, you know what I mean? Like knowing the twist and knowing what happens doesn't diminish the experience for me like it might do with M. Night Shyamalan's movies.
Yeah, no, definitely. I don't think the twist makes the game by any means. I think that there's so much else that the game has to offer that, like, even if the twist didn't happen in the game and the story continued as we might have expected it to prior to the twist,
Yeah.
it still would have been a very good game. On the subject of art, right? I used to dabble in graphic design. You and I have a great friend who's great at graphic design, and when he was kind of mentoring me into this, he told me that as you're working on these projects, pretty much any sort of artistic medium, you get to a point where you're at 90% finished, right? So you feel like this could be a finished product, but you just want to change one more thing. You just want to add just a little bit more. And getting from 90% to 100% is much more difficult, much more grueling. You got to spend more time on it than getting from 1 to 90%. And I think that this twist pushes BioShock from that 90% to that 100%. BioShock to me is one of the few like 10 out of 10 games that I would consider like this is a masterpiece. And I think if it weren't for the twist, it would be a 9 out of 10. But because of the twist, it is a 10 out of 10.
Okay, cool. Because like obviously, I'm just posing the question because the atmosphere, the newness of the idea, the freshness, the powers, the way like the Vita chambers, like there's so many new ideas in the game. So I just wanted to ask you the question because I know it's much more than its twist, but that really does make the game so much more interesting to me specifically. And actually, I don't know, maybe does BioShock Infinite even have even a better story? I don't know, but it's just like this one. It's yeah, it's a moment that your jaw drops for sure.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, that's all I have to say about mine, Elijah. I'd like to hear your tutus.
All right, so my first one that I earned is Undertale, the beating Undertale, the real ending, because that game's effing hard and it took me forever and I suck. So just that's my Demon Souls beating the ending of Undertale, whatever the super hard one is. That's my Demon Souls, my Dark Souls, my Bloodborne, my Sekiro, like Neo, whatever, all of it all wrapped into one. Bud, like that's what I earned. The second hardest one that I earned, but the one that they earned is the developers of Control, Remedy. They have done a great job with Control, and there's a moment in there that's called the Ashtray Maze, and it's nothing else in the game is like that section, and it is one of the coolest like flip your head type of moments in gaming I've experienced in a really long time. And it kind of likening it to your BioShock example, this takes like Control from like a solid 8 for me, like up to a 9. Like it gives
Mhm.
it a full point in jump because of how I was just like, this is effing rad. This is what I've wanted the whole time. This is bonkers. It's like you're playing Inception. Like the world's flipping in on it's like so like you're in Doctor Strange's Mirrorverse, and it's insanely cool.
Yeah, no, this is a great pick too. When I played Control, so I had known about the Ashtray Maze, and I've heard that like, yeah, that's the best part of the game. Like that seems to be the general consensus from everybody who played the game. So obviously, you can access the area where the Ashtray Maze is a little bit earlier in the game. Actually, I want to say pretty early in the game. So I was like, all right, yeah, let's do this. Pretty much anytime anytime I unlocked like a new key item or maybe like a character upgrade, I would go back to the Ashtray Maze because I was like, all right, it's time to do this now. But it was never time to do it, obviously, up until the end. And so even with my impatience, even having that preconception of what this could be, I would say that 100% the Ashtray Maze earned it, because what a cool little sequence. Like the pacing as you're like going through it just like builds so well. It's just everything about the Ashtray Maze, yeah, it's solid.
It lives up to the hype, right? Like,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
that's one of those things when like so you had a unique experience with it because I had no idea it existed, but like there's a lot of times where everyone's just like, oh, this is the best thing ever. This is amazing. Like this is incredible. And then there's we're critical creatures. Like we're trying to survive at all times. So we're just like I don't know, is this thing going to be as great as everyone says it is? And like it lives up to the hype. It really does, and I love it.
Yeah, good stuff. Excellent pick. I really like that one.
Why? Thank you, buddy. It's time for your numero uno.
Well, here we go. My number one is American Venom from Red Dead Redemption 2.
Okay, I see. I don't know anything about this.
Okay. So let me obviously if you haven't played Red Dead Redemption 2, spoilers here. Stop listening to the episode and spend 50 hours of your life playing it so that you can get to this moment cuz god damn what a long game. But I think that that's what partially adds to it as well. So essentially Red Dead Redemption 2, Elijah, do you care about story spoilers?
No, go for it, buddy.
Okay, yeah. So you play the game as Arthur Morgan. You're an outlaw on the run. Um, from the law. You're in a gang. Essentially, the gang ends up kind of imploding on itself. There are two members of the gang, specifically Micah Bell and Dutch Vanderland, who more or less turn on everybody else. You get to watch a lot of these people who you would consider your family if you're viewing this from the eyes of the protagonist of the game, Arthur Morgan. You get to watch a lot of them die, unfortunately, because of the action of these two men, Dutch, who you look up to very much. Um, anyway, so you're going through the game, you die. The game then transitions to the epilogue where you play as John Marston, who is the protagonist from Red Dead Redemption 1, which obviously takes place after Red Dead Redemption 2. So you're starting a new life as John. You're leaving the old world behind you, your old life. You're not looking to be a criminal anymore. You spend time. You build your own ranch. It's God. The epilogue is so boring. It's so gruely and boring and so hard to get through. Elijah. It's the rest of the game. You're a cowboy shooting people, and now you're a farmhand ranching and milking cows. It's pretty rough, but you get to the very end of the game. You get to the end of the epilogue. You've built a wonderful home for your son and for your wife, and then one of the surviving gang members comes back and tells you that they know where Micah and Dutch are. Micah is the person who killed Arthur, the man who you've grown to love throughout this experience, and John, who says, no, I've left this life behind me, decides, you know what, Arthur deserves justice. So you run up to where this camp is. It plays the sickest music I have ever heard in any game ever. You're shooting dudes in the face, and then you have this awesome standoff with Micah and Dutch, and it's a beautiful moment. But I think the one thing that makes this my number one earned it moment is it's so rare for a game to beautifully what's the word I'm looking for, embolden a motif, right? The motif here is in the title. It's redemption. Arthur Morgan, you're a criminal. Throughout the game you go on this journey to become a good man, and you have so much love for him, and then that's taken away from you, and then you get to take out the dude who killed him. You get that redemption for him, and it's just the most satisfying thing that I personally have ever felt in a video game before.
That's a hell of a number one, pal. That sounds extremely satisfying.
Yeah, man, it was good stuff. It was good stuff. I enjoy it. If you haven't played Red Dead Redemption 2, highly recommend it. And I've taken up a whole lot of time talking about this game. So Elijah,
No, I was gonna say, buddy, like Rockstar, are you listening right now? We know you listen to this podcast. Like, make single player games. You guys are great at it. Please, I know you make billions of dollars from making Grand Theft Auto Online and doing online services and stuff, but guys, when you're this masterful at storytelling, and like Grand Theft Auto 4 story is great, Grand Theft Auto 5 story is great. The why did they drift away from campaigns? Why won't they give us these games? It's crazy.
very good question. Very good question. Also, how is Grand Theft Auto 5 still selling super well? It was one of the top selling games of 2020. Did you know that?
Yeah, it's been yeah. It's Grand Theft Auto Online, man. Billions of people play it. It's just
Crazy.
silly. I don't get it.
Crazy. Anyways, that's enough about Rockstar. Elijah, let's hear your number one.
All right, so number one that I earned was beating all the Halos on Legendary, specifically Halo 2. One of my time honored traditions is getting Halo at midnight or whenever it releases for the first time in whatever time zone it's in, and sitting there and beating it the whole time. So, I've basically beaten every Halo on Legendary within 10 to 12 hours of it being released. But Halo 2 specifically was the one that I feel like I earned the most because it was the hardest. It has that reset, the checkpoint reset if either of you dies when you're playing co-op, whereas other ones like the legendary modes get kind of laughable because there's 4 of you. Like it's just like one person stay behind while the other 3 people just throw their bodies at it. Like Halo 2 though, definitely one that I earned, but I'm going to say one that they earned, and I'm really surprised that these didn't appear on your list, Brandon. And I'm just going to mention the moments because they're from The Last of Us and The Last of Us Part 2. And the first one, and I'm just going to say the words, if you know, you know, if you don't, play the games. That's just the facts. If you know, you know, if you don't, play the games. It's the giraffes and it's the space shuttle.
Those were 2 that I contemplated talking about on my list here, but I think when we had our special edition Last of Us 2 episode, I think you put it better than I ever could have. When you mentioned that The Last of Us 2 goes through this cycle of draining you and filling you up. And I think that each one of those moments that the game spends filling you up, like the giraffes, like the spaceship, um, I think that right there is mastery of earning a moment.
Actually, the best one is the take on me aha thing. That's the best one of all the moments to
Yeah.
me.
That one's pretty good. That one's pretty solid.
That game earns more moments than maybe any game has earned before. And there's a lot of people who question, like they might quibble with us about the term earned. Like they'd be like, oh, these character motivations are bad. And to them, I say you're bad. And I also say to them that Pedro Pascal is going to be an excellent Joel. Like it's just going to be great. And to all people named Andy who don't agree and don't like that casting, you suck.
Yeah, what was up with that?
I don't know. He's a very good friend of mine, a mutual friend of ours. But I shouldn't have put Andy on blast like that. I love you, Andy. It's okay. This is your penance for making me watch the Snyder cut. That's what it is. I get
Oh,
to
boy.
shout you out on the podcast and say, why don't you like Pedro? Why don't you love him?
The man loves escort missions, tell you what.
He does. I think my favorite tweet I saw about Pedro in Last of Us is that the dude's out here snatching up more orphans than Batman. Which is just quality. Oh my gosh, Brandon. Anything else about earned moments in games?
That's no, I think we've talked about this one enough. I really like it when games earn their moments.
Yep, I agree, pal. So we essentially did our best gaming achievements inside of this too, with just me actually. So sorry about that. Check us out on projectnerd.com. They keep the lights on. And of course, you can find us on the Project Nerd Gaming Network here. GamePitch is on there on Mondays. Top 4 is on there on Wednesdays. It's pretty fun. You can find me on Twitter at Mario RPGino. You can find the lovely, beautiful Brandon there at Mr. Snow97. And the show's, of course, on Apple and Google and Spotify and probably YouTube and other places. Who knows? Ask Q. Ask Joey. Ask them about it. They'll know. But other than that, Brandon, take us away.
Hey, I know you maybe don't think that we noticed, but that thing that you're doing with your hair, it's working. Thanks for listening. We'll see you here next week.